Hello, welcome back to Black Lives Matter at SJDK, our Advent 2020 series from St John the Divine, Kennington. I'm Wail Qasim, Pastoral Assistant at the church, and this week I'm joined by Lynda Philips, Ruby Powell and Pam Sobers to discuss the history and experiences of the Windrush Generation. They each tell powerful stories of racism in the church and wider society, and the faith that has allowed them to overcome. Here's their interview. So I thought we might just start the conversation off if we could get each of you to introduce yourselves firstly.
My name is Lynda Philips, and I at the moment present lives in Shepherd Bush, which is in West London. Originally, I was born in Barbados, and I came to this country in 1964 as a very young teenager.
Great. And Miss Ruby, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Ruby Powell. I now live not far from the church. I was born in Jamaica. I came here in 1955, and I'm 86 years now.
My name is Pam Sobers. I grew up in Barbados, and I came to this country when I was 13, and I now live at Liverpool Road, South London, and I was educated at Labrador School in Labrador Grove.
Brilliant. It's so wonderful to have you on. Could you tell me about your earliest memories of going to church, wherever that was, whether that was in Barbados or Jamaica or in England?
Well, when I came here in October 1955, I was living in Redcliffe Gardens in Chelsea. The church was about that's about 20 minutes from where I live. It was an Anglican church, Church of England. And my cousin and I, we went there for Christmas Sunday. We were the only two Black people in the church, and we weren't treated good at all. Some people just look at us and grin. And the priest they didn't give us communion, and they didn't talk to us. The priest just came down and wished everybody happy Christmas and went away. And we felt bad about it. My cousin even cried about it. So it wasn't a good experience then for my first Christmas in England.
I was brought up in my earlier life in Barbados, and in Barbados, we were brought up in the Church of England. The Anglican Church in those days was called the Anglican Church. We had to go to Sunday school, services, etc., etc. So we were quite used to going to church. When I came to this country in 1964, actually, I didn't go to church for some time, actually, because I wasn't quite sure about church. I didn't go to church for quite a while. Not until frequently we just sort of pop into church if you sort of go to somebody's funeral or wedding. And I didn't start going to church on a regular basis not until 1997, actually.
Right.
And my mother passed away. My mother lived this part of the world in South London, and we started going to St John the Divine at that time. And I found it. The priest at the time was a very nice man, Father Lyle Denning, who was really very pleasant. He did bury my mom. He didn't know us at all, and he treated us very well. So I thought, he invited us to church, and I thought, well, it's a good time to go to church. And we started going to church there at St John the Divine. And at St John the Divine was very different than it is today, because I was going to church there for about 2 years. You just sat in the seat. No one ever even asked you what your name was or who you were. You just went in, you sat in the service, and you go. Nobody asked you who you were. You just sat and warmed the bench.
Right.
That was St. John the Divine way back in 1997, 98. So that was my first experience at church, and real experience at church in this country at St. John the Divine.
It was the same with me as well.
Okay.
Sitting in church, no one knew you, no one They didn't even come and give you the peace. You never got the peace from no one. You just sat there like idiot.
Was that the whole congregation, or was that just for you that didn't show
That was almost the whole congregation.
Uh-huh. Why do you think that was?
Well, I guess because the congregation the majority of the congregation were predominantly white people in the church, and there were a couple of black people there. They just know their place and were sitting, but the sort of hierarchy of the church was mostly white people actually, and we sat there until I think it was about 2 years or something before anything sensible happened in the church for black people. I remember when I did my first lesson in church, actually, I read the first lesson, and one of the church wardens said to me, "Oh, BBC English." They probably thought I was an idiot or something.
Oh, wow. Okay. Can I ask about church in Barbados? What was what did the church leadership look like there?
And Barbados, our church was just a community church for everybody. There weren't many white people in it, to say that. There are no white people at all, I think, in our church, actually, where we came from, where we grew up. So the church was just normal, a church for black people. Everybody participated in church. The choir was, the usual black choir.
Yeah. Everyone knew everyone.
Everyone knew everyone, was jolly, and everybody would talk to everybody. It was just church. And Sunday school was just the same. You go to Sunday school, you had your Sunday school teachers, and everything was the same. There was no sort of distancing in church in Barbados, because in our village, as you would call it, it was just a black community. I don't think there was any white people living in our area.
Right.
So church was really friendly and happy. And when you came to this country, you would probably think that church was going to be the same, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
Mm.
It was the same, like Lynda said, in the same thing happened in Jamaica. Apart from it was a white priest in our church and his wife. Those were the only two white people in there. Everybody else was black people. But everybody gets along together. We worship together. We eat. Everybody was happy together, because that is what my grandmother was, a staunch Christian. So that is what we do in Jamaica. And as Lynda say, we came to this country and we expect the same, but it's different, because after that experience with me at Redcliffe Gardens, I never go to church for a long time until I got married and live in Tooting. And it was so good in Tooting because my husband's cousin, Bishop Powell, he formed the New Testament church in this country. And then we start to go there. And from then I came to live in Brixton. And then I went to the Baptist church where there was all black people in Brixton. And then from then it was good, very good. And then I moved to Evandale Road here. And I was invited to St. John Divine by Father Mark and Father David, who we had a little party at my friend over the road there after her husband died. And then I went there, and they welcomed me with open arms, and I'm there until now. So it's different experiences with black people in this country, because some people even go to church and they were turned away. They said, this church is not for you. So it did happen, That's the experience we have when we come here, because we came here and we thought everybody was Christian like what we were in Jamaica and Barbados, but it was different.
And it's no surprise that if you're made to feel like a stranger when you first go to church, then you won't go back for a while.
No, because I felt like not a stranger. We felt like we were nobody, my cousin and I, because we were the only two blacks in the church. And that was Christmas Day. And the priest gave everybody communion except we two. But they took our money. We gave our collection and they took it. And he came and he wished everybody happy Christmas. And he just passed us by and went away. So that was really, 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 when I told my grandma, because my grandma was still alive then in Jamaica, she could never believe it. She wanted me to come straight home back, but because I was getting treatment for my malaria, I couldn't go back home.
Mm-hmm. I mean, listening to you describe it now, I can't believe it either. It just doesn't seem like something that you would expect from a church or from a Christian at all.
It happens. Yes, it does happen to lots of Black people in this country, and I mean loads of Black people. Partly every Black that came here it's only since of late it doesn't happen to them, since they start taking in people to their churches. And a matter of fact, I give you a story. My daughter married to an Englishman, and their parents live in Lancashire. And 15 years ago, I went to Lancashire to meet the parents. We went there, and we went to a little church. It was English church or Church of England or whatever. And the way they look at us, and that was only 15 years ago, and the way they look at me, my daughter didn't go. I didn't go back. Nobody says anything. They just give you a look. And that was in the 90s.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When you came to Britain, did it feel like you were coming to somewhere that was your home?
Well, I was one of the lucky one when I came here, because I didn't come here to work. I came here because my grandaunt, she was a nurse in the Second World War, and she married to an American major. And when I couldn't get better in Jamaica because we had malaria. The whole of my parish, you have to say, was wiped out with people dying with malaria and typhoid. So my grandmother sent me over here to see if I could get better. And that is the reason why I came to Britain. And when I came, I was living all right with my grandaunt and her husband. I didn't meet a lot of terrible things like what some people say they meet when they came here. And unfortunately, the hospital couldn't get me better with malaria because they didn't have the quinine to give me. So we heard about this place called Hawley Street. A nurse told me that in St. Stephen Hospital, I had a little part-time job there, even though I had the malaria. And that was where we go. And I had to pay 1 guinea every Tuesday for my injection, and that was where I got cured. You couldn't get it on the NHS then. So life wasn't too bad for me at all, because I came over here to my family, and they were all right. Thank the Lord. Some people had it very, very, very rough.
Yeah.
When I came, my parents are already here, so I came to my parents, and we came to our parents. My sister, she went off to school. I was a little bit older, so I had to go to evening college because I wanted to be a nurse. And after that, I got myself into a hospital and started nurses training. And it wasn't too bad, but people weren't really blatantly racist. But you could see, you knew that they didn't really like you, but they would show you a nice face as they normally do, a nice grin. But you know within your heart, they didn't really like you, really. And you nursed, as a young nurse in my early 18-year-old nurse, going into hospital and seeing majority of the people were white people, seeing all these people. And you would hear stories. Well, I would say I never really had it, but you hear stories from some of your colleagues. Some of the patients will say to them, I don't want you to touch me, take your nasty black hands off me, things like that. But I would say I never really had that. But, you hear lots of stories from colleagues saying how people would sort of say things to them, and you would realize you just know your place and get on with your work. But on the whole, I wouldn't say it. Nobody normally picked on me and said, go home, you black so-and-so. But they had quite a few people that will say that people said that to them, go back to where you come from and things like that. But I couldn't say that anyone ever said to me, why don't I go back where I come from?
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy, but you put up with it. They never really told you, oh, I don't like you, but then you knew. You go to the canteen to have your meal and you see the people that are serving you, they serve you the food, and they'll watch you as you sit down to see how you're going to eat the food, whether you're going to put your hands and eat it with your hand, or whether you knew how to use a knife and fork, that sort of thing. You would notice,
Yeah. Was it a similar experience for you, Pam?
No, I didn't experience a lot of racism because as I've been to school here, I was only 2 black children in my class at that time, and all the others were white, but we got all very rare. So I didn't experience a lot of racism, but you knew racism was there, but I never experienced it personally.
I'd be interested to hear, did you think of yourselves as black and the people around you as white at that time?
Well, I knew I was black, yeah, of course. I knew I was black.
Of course we knew we were black.
And I knew we were different.
We were different, different in color, but not different in spirit. We were different on the outside, but on the inside, we sort of think we were all the same, but we knew that we were black, and there's other people were white. You had the black people, you had the white people, and you had what they call now people of color, but then everybody knew their own station, but we definitely knew that we were black. And people knew you were black because they didn't say, come on here, you blackie. But they had some people would say, there goes blackie, or something like that.
Right.
I remember when we first came, my mom said to me, make sure when you're crossing the road that you cross between the white people in case they knock you over.
Wow.
Yes, my mom said that to me. Make sure when you cross the crossing, cross between the white people. Otherwise, you never know, the man that driving the car might knock you over, which I thought, she did warn us, as you say, the talk. We had the talk.
Right. To warn you against the fact that you might be harassed or attacked or...
Yes, she had that in your head. Be careful. As she's seen things before, white people beating up black ones like that. But she did warn us, give us the talk,
And do you think as the years have gone on, has there been a change in your perception of racism in Britain?
Well, I would say some people, I think they've got more tolerant, actually. You do see things, but I would say they're more tolerant now because I think they seem to say, oh, the blacks are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. Whether they like it or not, they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. So I think they're just about tolerate us, actually.
Yes, that is true.
And I'm interested in how we got there. And I wonder if you could maybe tell me a bit about your memories of what black people or the black community's resistance to racism was as you were growing up or during your years in England.
Well, I would say the black people got a little bit more tolerant because sometimes the things that were going on, some of the black people did sort of protest. They had their marches and stuff like that. And then they had this thing with the police because, the police was always on the white side, not on the black side. So people had to sort of organize their protest marches, and then they had more black people then that sort of got together and formed organizations and stuff that they could start to protect their people. And along the line, I think certain places got a little bit more tolerant, but you can still see it's going on at the moment because look at all the stuff you see, all this stop and search business with black people walking, because you see a black person walking the street, you don't know who he or she is, and straight out they look at you and think you're a criminal. You still get that going on now.
Yes, I know it's still going on, and because of that, 25 years ago, my daughter joined the police force because and even in the police force, she would tell me stories and stories of what's going on in there. They pretend to like her, but some did not like her. It was the police them in this country that and the teddy boys and that really started on black people. As soon as the police see you open a little restaurant or a little thing, little stores, they burst in to see if you're selling drugs or if you are laundering money, and that was the police. And until this day, they are still doing it, because I witnessed with my own eyes what happened in Notting Hill when Dorcas Hull was on Devil's Advocate, and I remember he was in that show as well. Last week we all saw it, and I remember with my own eyes how the police, this Trinidadian man opened a restaurant there and for the community, and he was doing good. All the black people would go for their meals and socialize and play dominoes and cards. They didn't like it because they didn't want to see black people go forward and progress in this country. You must always sweep in the street and doing the dirty work. That's what they want. And I remember that night, I was in the pub because I was working in the Coach and Horses pub in Brixton. And I heard the whole story when Dorcas came down and told us. They came in there and they smashed up all his restaurant, and they arrest him and some of the people them looking for drugs and say they are laundering money. So this is I know this from donkey years ago, and same thing is happening now. As soon as a black man progresses and is doing good, they find a way to cut him down and it's people, we fight against it. The black people them stood up and fight against it, and it's a bit better now, but to tell you the truth, it's still going on now and then. It's nothing changed much.
I work in the NHS as a nurse for, let me see, what I made it for 30 years in the NHS as a nurse. And you're treated fine, but you could see the signs of racism when it comes to jobs, etc., and promotions. You always find it harder for the black person to get, you're doing the same work, but you always find it twice as hard to get a promotion to your colleague, your white colleague. But I find I did get through quite well, actually. I came from bottom to top, and I did get on quite well. I made myself into a senior nurse before I left the NHS. And then after that, I went into the private sector and worked at St. Luke's for the clergy, which I looked after all these priests and their families, which was quite good. So I could say my time wasn't too bad because I made it. I did what I had to do and made it to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds that you made of that situation, you made something good out of it for yourself and for other people in the kind of work.
And because right now you see there are more black people at the top, because if you go back to this racism thing, it starts at the top. It's not the ordinary person that you're working with. It's at the top. It's normally the bosses, the people that are in charge are the ones that are the racist ones. And until it changes at the top of things, it's not going to get any better, because you see, there are not many sort of black people, maybe one or two that you find sitting on the board and stuff like that. But as soon as we get that sorted out, I think this will be a better place for people to live in, actually. It's got to come from the top.
I wonder, what do you think today are the biggest problems with race in this country? What is it that stands out for you?
What stands out to me in this country now between black and white, they've still got the two-tier system. They're black people and white people. Black people are always either bottom or middle class. You'll find a few middle class. And at the top, say you've got a board of governors. How many black people do you see on the board of governors of anything? Not a lot. Look at sports. You go into football and stuff. You don't have any prominent black people at top sort of organizing things. You might find maybe one odd person, but not many. And until they sort that out, they might say, take a black person and stick him in a job. Even in Parliament, You got some black MPs, they're trying, but the ones that are making the rules, there are not many black ones that are making the rules. So until that changes, I don't think anything is going to change, really.
It looks like
it's going to go on.
Miss Ruby.
I don't know if it will change. The only change, I think, it's what we have to do now with our children and grandchildren. We have to try and let them have the best education that there is so that they can climb the ladder and make it better for the fourth and third and fifth generation to come. I might live to see it, but I think if that happens, there will be three-quarter change. It won't be a full change, but it will be a better change if that happens. We just have to encourage the younger generations now for education, and I think that is only that's going to put the Black people forward.
I'm really glad you brought up the Mangrove film, Miss Ruby, and that.
Yes.
One of the things that struck me about the film was that Black community, and just how closely knit it seemed to be.
Exactly.
And, I wonder, do you think that that's something that we still have today?
Yes, we still have it today. We still have it today. They always try to break it up, but we still have it today.
Tell me about your experiences of it.
Well, my experience with the Black community is not until I came to Brixton here. When I was in Tooting, Bishop Powell had a very lovely, nice Black community. God bless him. He's in heaven now. And every Black people from all over the world join it. And it was so good. But when I left and I came to Brixton, there was a lot of people who tried to form a nice community in Wellington Road and all over the place. But the police always break it up. Always break it up. And we had a lovely community where I live here in Evandale Road. Over the road, there are council flats there. And we have a Black lady there named Lucy. She formed a lovely community over there. And so many times they tried to kick her out, but we stood together. Every Thursday we would have a meeting, and then when my daughter now joined the police force, she would come to the meeting, and she wants the young people to come, and she would encourage them and so on. And a lot of them around here love my daughter. They always ask me for her. She's not here now. She's in Bedford teaching now, but she does a good lot as well. But we still have the little community going there. But through lockdown now, it's all closed down, and people would go there for weddings, christenings, birthday parties, everything. And it runs good, and it's a lovely little community.
Lynda, did you have anything to say?
All I can say about that, you always tell, where a group of Black people so together to do anything. It starts off well, and you always find that somewhere along the line, the police comes in just to inquire what you're doing. They always got this idea that you're either selling drugs or something like that, and then that puts a block on you. People will love to have a nice community where you can go to. And then again, some of the people, you did have some of your own people that will come in and make a mess of things. You know, you have the odd one that will come in and break things up. But mostly, inside there's an organization that carries on very well, something for Black people, and it's going well. Somewhere along the line, somebody will call the police and say, oh, those Black people in there, they're too noisy. They're doing this and they're doing that. And you find the police come and knock on the door to find out what's going on and things like that. But I suppose it happens everywhere. I don't know.
Yes, it happens everywhere because my daughter used to attend the meetings some Thursday if she's not on duty when she was in the police force. And twice the police came down and said the music was too loud, wherein it wasn't too loud at all. because my daughter see to it that by 10 o'clock, they lower that meeting, and by 11 o'clock, everybody's out. But they came twice. But after they came and they saw my daughter there, because my daughter always come in her uniform. And when they saw my daughter there, from then they never come back.
And maybe could we just close by, would you give some words of encouragement to people who maybe they're younger people, or maybe they are white people who want to be anti-racist, want to fight against racism today? What words of encouragement would you offer them?
Well, to everyone, you would say to them, believe in God, have strong faith, hope, and keep praying that things will change. It is slightly changing at the moment, but keep praying. The faithful ones, keep praying, have faith in the Almighty, and I'm sure we will overcome. And one day, we all will sort of sing and shout and rap together.
Yes, I would say that as well. And I would say to the young people, read your Bible more. If it's even once a week, or read your Bible. And please have faith and teach your younger siblings them to have faith in God. And if you do that, and the younger people, them, even the parents, if they once a week you would have a meeting with the family and you read the Bible to them and you teach them, I think things will overturn. But with the black kids, some of them you just don't know how to do it, because I talked to some over there and they said, Miss Ruby, look how the police treat us. I say, well, my dear, we have, God forgive us every day he died for us. We have to forgive them, because half of them don't know what they are doing or what they are saying. But if you have faith, and you yourself must pray for them that they turn better, don't lower yourself to them. I would tell the young people them over there. And if we pray more and ask God to forgive them and put our trust in God, things will change.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen, indeed. I think that's a really important message. Thank you both so much for joining me. I think this has been a really important conversation, and it's been a pleasure to spend this time talking to you. Thank you for listening, and thank you again to Lynda, Ruby, and Pam. Their experiences are clearly much more than just food for thought, but building blocks for action and a reminder that a change will come because it has to. Next week, we look forward to having Kumba Ngegba, Faith Locken, and Charlene Taylor join us to discuss their response to current organising around Black Lives Matter. Join us then.